It's now 6:30. I'd like to call to order the Regional Planning Commission business meeting for Thursday, March the 10th. And as customary, I ask that if you have a phone or electronic device, you either turn it off or make sure it's on vibrate so it won't interfere with our meeting. As we get started tonight, customarily we have a pledge. Glenn, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Commissioner, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, sir. And I don't know about you all in the audience tonight, but it was certainly a pleasure to see once again the sun up as we're getting into that time of year when we'll have sunlight late at night. Now we're going to have a roll call and determination of quorum. I'm going to you, Sarah, please.
Mr. Peterman?
Present.
Mr. Servon?
Present.
Mrs. Karcher?
Here.
Mr. Galvary?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Jester?
Here.
So you have 7 present. You do have a quorum.
I thank you very much. In front of you tonight, you also have the agenda. Is there any additions, deletions? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Galvary?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of approving tonight's agenda.
Also in your packet are the minutes from February the 10th, 2022. If there's no additions or anything to the minutes, I'll ask for a motion and a second to accept.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Call the commission, please.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes.
Mr. Servon?
Yes.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Galvary?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of approving the minutes of February 10th.
Next on our agenda, you can see the actions of Levy Court with their recommendations. If you have any questions about what they've done or didn't do, please contact staff. We're now going to get into new business. First one on the agenda tonight is CS-21-10, Our Generation, LLC, request for conditional use with site plan approval of a solar facility, public utility, located outside the growth zone overlay district. We had quite a conversation. Everybody did a great presentation of what we were going to do and how they were going to do things. So does any commissioners have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion and go from there. Any commissioners want to do the motion?
No.
Dee Dee?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Take this off. I move that the Regional Planning Commission recommend conditional approval of application CS-21-10, a conditional use site plan for a solar installation located outside the growth zone overlay district. This is based on Exhibit A, Staff Recommendation Report dated March 3, 2022, and Exhibit B, Public Hearing Testimony dated March 3, 2022, and the findings of fact that A, the subject site is zoned agricultural residential, and subchapters 205-64 and 205-329 permit public utilities as a conditional use. B, that the location is appropriate and not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. C, the public health, safety, and general welfare will not be adversely affected. And D, the application is compliant with the adequate public facilities ordinance. Pursuant to Chapters 187 and 205 of the Kent County Code, and pursuant to 9 Delaware Chapters 4802 and 4811, the Commission has reviewed the application and the March 3, 2022 Staff Recommendation Report, and furthermore, as part of this approval, the applicant shall comply with all staff and agency requirements as described in the Staff Recommendation Report. A, the proposed tree buffer shall be modified as shown in Figure 1 of the staff report. B, appropriate ground cover shall be planted so as to prevent soil erosion. C, the final plan must be approved within 24 months of preliminary plan approval, and construction shall commence within 18 months of final plan approval. D, failure to comply with the conditions of approval or applicable regulations can result in a revocation of any permits issued for this conditional use and a revocation of the conditional use itself. E, the setback areas shall be planted to achieve minimum 6-foot-high, 4-season visual barrier in accordance with the following guidelines. 1, include a variety of native evergreen trees. Existing native vegetation may be used to achieve the required planted buffer. 2, a minimum of 2 rows shall be installed and trees shall be planted in staggered rows. Plantings shall be placed at maximum 20 feet apart with the same row and 10 feet apart from the adjacent staggered row. 3, include ground cover to minimize growth of invasive species or provide a mowing schedule until the area is fully established in a natural condition. 4, the buffer shall be maintained to prevent disease from spreading, and any trees that don't survive shall be replaced. 5, a raised berm with the 1-to-4 side slope and flat top may be used to achieve minimum height at planting. F, the required buffer may be counted toward planting requirements included in Chapter 187 Subdivision and Land Development. G, if topsoil is removed for improvements, it shall remain on the site. H, non-invasive perennial vegetative ground cover must be maintained or established in all areas containing solar arrays and in required setbacks to prevent erosion and manage runoff. I, a soil study establishing the presence of any contaminants shall be completed prior to construction and every 5 years thereafter. If any contaminants are found that can be related to the solar facility, the source shall be identified and immediately mitigated. A summary of each soil study shall be submitted to the county, and the full report kept on file by the applicant and available for review by the county. J, signage not to exceed 6 square feet, identifying the operator, its contact numbers, and emergency contact information shall be posted at each entrance or exit of the property. K, abandonment. A community energy generating facility does not produce energy for a continuous period of 1 year or more shall be presumed to have been abandoned. The applicant may request a good cause exemption that may not be unreasonably withheld so long as all real estate and personal property taxes are in good standing. Any facility that has been abandoned without attaining a good cause exemption must be decommissioned and removed within 180 days. And decommissioning must consist of 1, physical removal of all solar photovoltaic facilities, structures, equipment, security barriers, and transmission lines from the site. 2, recycling of or disposal of all solid and hazardous space in accordance with local, state, and federal regulations. 3, stabilization or revegetation of the site as necessary to minimize erosion. The planning director is authorized to allow the owner or operator to leave landscaping or designated below-grade foundations in place in order to minimize erosion and disruption to vegetation and/or agriculture. A decommissioning plan. A decommissioning plan outlining the anticipated means and costs of removing the solar farm must be submitted with the application. to the decommissioning plan shall ensure that the owner or operator properly removes the equipment and facilities upon the end of project life or after their usual life. The plan must include provisions for the removal of all structures and foundations, the removal of all electrical transmission components, and the restoration of soil and vegetation. And 3, the owner-operator must provide a present-day decommissioning cost estimate and identify the parties responsible for decommissioning. And a financial assurance. The operator or property owner shall provide a bond, surety, letter of credit, or other financial assurance in a form and amount acceptable to the department to secure payment of 100% of the anticipated cost of removal of all associated site improvements and restoration of the site to its pre-development condition. The financial assurance shall remain in force and effect as long as the solar facility remains in place. And the final assurance shall be reviewed and renewed every 5 years to ensure the amount does reflect the current market.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, please call the commission.
Mr. Peterman.
I vote yes. To approve the motion.
Mr. Servon.
Yes, to approve.
Mrs. Karcher.
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Galvary.
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Mills.
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Jester.
Yes to approve.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of recommending conditional approval of application CS 2110.
Thank you all, and good luck with your project. Next on the agenda tonight is LC 22-05, Solar Facilities. It's an ordinance to amend Kent County Code, Volume 2, Chapter 205, Zoning. And there's a lot of definitions and amendments to articles and various things, as you can see on your agenda report. And at the end of it, it's supplementary regulations in order to establish community energy generating facility as conditional uses in the AC, AR, and BG zoning districts. Utility solar facilities as conditional uses in the AC inside the growth zone overlay district, AR, and BG zoning districts, and establish conditions of approval for each. I think Sarah has a PowerPoint presentation that we can go through that's better explains things not only for us, but the ones in the audience tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the comments we heard last week and some comments we got subsequent to the hearing, we tried to craft some potential amendments for the commission to consider. The first one within the ordinance, and this is both in the utility solar and the community solar, would eliminate the 2,000-foot separation distance. Then would amend, and this is for utility solar, would replace the 4 rows of trees with only 2 rows of trees. And if you have questions as we do this, just stop me. There was a recommendation to sort of fill out the standard for ground cover with respect to the seed mix. So we incorporated that, and that ends up both in utility and the community. There were, prior to the hearing, Mike Ryman had submitted some suggestions regarding standards for the soils testing, additional standards, to add some clarity. So we've incorporated that as Amendment 4 within the utility section. Then for the community section, there appeared to be a consensus to increase the maximum acreage from 40 acres to 50. And again, eliminate the separation distance, and instead cite the existing regulations and requirements for co-location that the state has established. There was a suggestion to reduce some of the setbacks for community solar. So instead of 150 outside the growth zone, that would be 100 front. Instead of 100 side, 50. Instead of 100 rear, that would be 50. And then for AC inside the growth zone as well as AR and BG, 100 to 75, 75 to 50, and again, 75 to 50. And again, within the community section of the ordinance requiring 2 rows of trees rather than 4. Same ground cover. And again, this is repetitive because there are 2 separate sections of the ordinance. And again, the exact same language, trying to add clarity with respect to soils testing over time. And then finally, for the effective date, if the ordinance is adopted, it's effective upon adoption. What staff is proposing is also adding a standard for effectively what would be considered vested under existing. So that would be anything that has been submitted, properly submitted and accepted for a preliminary plan review. So if that's in prior to the adoption of this ordinance, it would proceed under today's regulations. That just adds clarity when an ordinance is adopted. So again, that's just a very, very quick summary of what staff put together based on what we heard last week and the comments that were submitted. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I certainly thank you, Sarah Solar. Sorry about that. I really appreciate the time that staff has put into this and incorporating some of the suggestions, not only here, but from the audience that was here last week. I think it greatly improves everything that we're seeing tonight and what we're having presented to us. Because we always know that it seems like as time goes by that things get ahead of us, just like streets have got ahead of DelDOT. But we're going to demonstrate to our citizens in the county that hopefully we can stay up to the date and up to times with things that are coming before us. So I think Dee Dee has a question.
I don't have a question. You've pretty much said what I wanted to say. And I think that I think that people can appreciate compromise. And I think that that's what I'm seeing here. And I'm very pleased with the compromise. So what I'm saying is it everything that I would want to see? No. But is it a great improvement? Absolutely. And I think people that feel kind of opposite to me should be able to say the same thing. I got a lot, not quite everything, but I got a lot as well. And I keep remembering this, 5 years from now, whatever, can be augmented. It can be changed a little bit. So, this is a great, great beginning. It might be better than, more than just a beginning. It may be for a long time.
Any other commissioners have anything? Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support this only because it's a beginning, and hopefully as time moves on, we have some protection for the farmland. I'm very concerned about what's happening in our county and how expedient some of these companies are coming in here taking our farmland. And so I'm going to support it because I do think it's a beginning. It may not be the best thing at this particular time, but since we have no ordinances that cover this issue of solar, I think it's time that we get moving and get it done. So I will support it, and only in the hopes that everyone's going to be thinking about the county farmer and the amount of land that could potentially be lost because many farmers rent land in addition to what they own. And I think a lot of people have overlooked that. So thank you for an opportunity to say something, and I will support it at this time.
Any other commissioners have anything they'd like to say? Mr. Mills?
Would like to ask, this is not really putting a lid on the mega solar farms to be able to put an application in on this agricultural land like we've been trying to get changed. Am I correct? They're still allowed to put applications in for the large utility solar farms?
Do you mean under today's regulations or under the draft, under the ordinance in front of you? Under today's regulations or under this ordinance?
Okay, I'm just not clear on it. So.
You okay, Mr. Mills? What she says about how this ordinance is going to be, like the PowerPoint said, that the larger ones are going to be directed to the growth zone areas.
Under this ordinance, a utility solar, a large-scale solar facility would not be permitted in the AC zoning district. Can you pull up a zoning map real quick? In the AC zoning district outside of the growth zone overlay. And we'll put up a picture.
Now you answered my question.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Mills. Anybody else here have any? I think they're going to put it up again, and we're going to put a map of the areas where it can be. Is that what you're putting up, Chris? They're showing a definition of the map, Mr. Mills, as you had requested. Could you outline where Route 1's at on that one? Do you have it on there?
Route 1 is the east side of the growth zone. Right there.
Okay, anything east of that, now keep that arrow going up and down there.
Yep,
Anything east of that is not in the growth zone, is that correct?
that's correct. And
All right, I had the wrong line I've been looking at on this map then.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we're good.
You're not alone.
You got another green line running down the middle, there it is over on that side. Now I'm seeing it.
Well, I tell you, the maps, I think, were a great help, too. I think a lot of you commented on that, but they were excellent help for what we tried to do. Any more questions? Glenn?
Sarah, on the decommissioning plan, the financial assurance, forgive me because it's probably right there, but I just want your clarification on it. So if one of the things that came up last week, a company was concerned, an individual was concerned that if a company was to go bankrupt, that they could somehow skirt that requirement. Is the wording in there such where that is not possible?
Yes, I mean, the intent of providing the financial surety is that the county will have access to the funds if the county needs to remove the infrastructure. It's the same way we bond any other community improvement. And that's actually because these projects are so long-term and markets change. That's why it calls for review of the budget every 5 years. And then we renew the surety for whatever the new amount is.
So the farmer would never get stuck holding the bag if the company that put in the panels were somehow to go bankrupt.
That's certainly the intent. The intent is that we would have the funds available through the county to be able to remediate.
Okay, thank you.
I think Denise has a question for our attorney.
Yeah, this is a tremendously long motion, but we've just had a nice presentation that really outlined the amendments that have made since we last had our meeting last Thursday. Is it necessary to say both the newest, or do we have to also include what was said in the past too?
You can take up the amendments by name, Amendment 1, Amendment 2, and not have to read it all in.
So that it will imply that everything except these changes, everything else is staying the same.
Right.
Okay, all right.
But there are 11 amendments. If there was a consensus, kind of like the levy court does a consent agenda, you could do all 11 at once. But if anybody here has heartburn, any one of you has heartburn about any one of the amendments, then I would take them up individually.
I would like to then ask the commissioners, they've all been able to read these amendments, and to make it a shorter version, if we adopt all 11 amendments by just saying Amendment 1 through Amendment 11, I'll give you a few minutes to look that over to make sure you're okay with everything. But if you want to comment on any particular amendment, please ask me and I'll recognize you.
I'd move that we accept those amendments. I think everyone's had ample time to read it. I read it 5 times. And I don't want to be the reader of this whole ordinance, so I think that would help out a big amount. So I think it's pretty clear, so I'd make a motion that we accept the amendments.
Well then, Mr. Davis, would you like to go ahead and begin the motion and just include the 11 amendments, and then we can vote on it? Would you like to do that?
I'll do that, yes. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt the 11 amendments of LC 22-05 solar facilities.
I have a motion. I assume that would be good enough, Mr. Attorney, for the way we're presenting it, to adopt it? Or should we read the first paragraph in?
Are we just working on amendments now?
Well, I mean, does he need to read the first paragraph and then identify the amendments or not?
That's one way to do it. Another way would just be to deal with the amendments first.
Okay, he's made a motion to accept the 11 amendments. Is there a second?
Second.
Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Servon?
Yes, to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes.
Mr. Galvery?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, to approve all the amendments regarding LC 22-05 solar facilities.
Mr. Jester?
Yes, to include all the amendments.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of recommending approval of amendments 1 through 11.
Now, Mr. Attorney, I'll have to ask you, do we need the beginning motion?
Yes.
So I'll go back to you, Mr. Davis. If you'd like to read the beginning motion on the very first part of it, right at the very top of it. Just one paragraph.
Thank God I made that a motion.
If you read that one paragraph, we're getting out of a lot of reading here tonight.
I don't think I get that much breath to read all that paper. All right, thank you,
Best.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Regional Planning Commission, this is regarding LC 22-05, solar facilities motion. I move that the Regional Planning Commission recommend approval of ordinance LC 2205, establishing community energy generating facility as a conditional use in the AC, AR, and BG zoning districts, utility solar facility as a conditional use in the AC, in parentheses, inside the growth zone overlay district. I want to emphasize that, inside the growth zone overlay district, AR and BG zoning districts, and the conditions of approval for each use with the following amendments, which we have just accepted.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the same solar facilities motion. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Servon?
Yes, to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Galvery?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Jester?
Yes, to approve.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of recommending approval of ordinance LC 2205 as amended.
I thank you. And all that attended for this or was here last week, we certainly appreciate all the time you've taken, and hopefully this will get us started down the right path. Good luck with the solar facilities as has been adopted. Next tonight on our new business is the S22-02 Carter Machinery. Applicant owner is JCA Property Holdings, LLC, 8531 Pulaski Highway, Baltimore, Maryland, 21237. Engineer is Stephen J. Gorski, P.E., Duffield Associates, 5400 Limestone Road, Wilmington, Delaware, 19808. Property address is 13074 South DuPont Highway, Felton, Delaware, 19943. Comprehensive plan map designation is commercial. Present zoning district is general business, BG. Relation to growth zone is inside. Present use is equipment storage. Proposed use, equipment storage with equipment wash bay. Proposed building size is 5,110 square feet. Water is on-site well. Sewer is on-site septic. Lever Court District is the 6th, Mr. Howe. School District is Lake Forest. Fire District is Station 48 Felton Fire Company. Area and location is 7.2083 plus or minus acres on South DuPont Highway, Delaware Route 13, 821 feet south of the intersection with Reeves Crossing Road, 286, approximately 1.5 miles south of the town of Felton. Is there someone here to represent this application? On the phone, so I'll recognize Mark on the phone.
Mr. Gorski, could you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Steve Gorski, Duffield Associates, now Verdantis, 55 Stone Road, Wilmington, Delaware.
Also, guys, I'm sorry, my mic was muted. Carter Berkey with Carter Machinery is also on the call.
Okay, Mr. Gorski, you can proceed.
Yeah, you can go ahead with your presentation, sir. Thank you.
The plan includes a proposed wash bay that's replacing an old wash bay. The current wash bay is uncovered. This one will be covered with open sides. The plan will require stormwater management practices. We're proposing a wet pump to suit the needs for sediment stormwater management. There'll be small areas of additional impervious areas in front of the wash bay to, allow for low buoys and vehicles to access the wash bay for wash down. The site is on well and septic. We're working with DelDOT to obtain their approvals. We anticipate a letter of no contention. The entrances are going to remain in place at the same locations. There's no additional traffic anticipated with this ancillary use. That's all I had. Carter, if you had anything else to say.
I do have a statement for you, sir. I see you're doing a lot line adjustment, sir. It's all going to be one parcel. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, we are going to consolidate. There's two lots. We're going to combine into one. The wash bay is just to one side of that middle lot line that will be extinguished.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Does the other gentleman have a presentation on the phone too? Does he like to say something?
No, guys, I'm just here for any additional questions. I mean, Steve kind of hit the nail on the head, and if you guys have any questions for me or for Carter, I'm just here for support.
We thank you. I'll open it up to the commissioners. Does any commissioner here have any particular questions or statement about this application?
You're a Felton man. Where the location is this at Felton?
It's right on the other side of Uncle Willie's, southbound from Felton. And yes, it is in the Felton Fire District. That's correct. That's correct. Hopefully they can straighten out on their fire alarm so we don't have to go there in the middle of the night. That's a little bit of humor there, young man. I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, just in short, I'm representing Carter Machinery that has acquired Albin Caterpillar, which is this dealership up there. So we've had a lot of success in Carter Machinery, and we're trying to bring that up there, I guess, north and east. So bear with us. And I'm sorry if we've had some unanswered alarms. We'll get it straightened out, I promise you.
Well, that'll be okay. We'll make sure that, being I'm sitting in a chair here, I can't say too much, but you can certainly contact us up at the firehouse and let us know what's going on. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any commissioners don't have any questions, I would entertain a motion.
Motion.
Mr. Mills?
I move the Regional Planning Commission grant conditional approval of the application S-22-02 Carter Machinery, a site plan for an equipment wash station located inside the Growth Zone Overlay District. This is based on Exhibit A, staff recommendation report dated March 10th, 2022, and the findings of the facts that A, the site is zone BG, in which an equipment wash station is a permitted use per section 205-169 permitted use. Plan B is compliant with the comprehensive plan pursuant to Chapter 187 and 205 of the Kent County Code and pursuant to the 9 Del C 4802 and 4811. The Commission has reviewed the application and the March 10th, 2022 staff recommendations report. And furthermore, as part of this approval, the applicant shall maintain compliance with all requirements and recommendations of the staff recommendation reports, including but not limited to: A waiver from 187-60 sidewalks required frontage and internal access sidewalks is approved. A subject property is currently undergoing a lot consolidation with parcel SM-00-148.00-01-11.04. This consolidation must be completed and recorded prior to plan approval. C, a final plan must be approved within 24 months of the preliminary plan approval, and construction shall commence within 18 months of the final plan approval in accordance with 187-41.C, or the plan will be considered expired. The final plan must meet all requirements of both 187 and 205 of the Kent County Code and all items in the final plan column of Appendix D of 187.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes, to approve.
Mr. Galvary?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Jester?
Yes to approve.
So you have 7 yeas in favor of granting conditional approval of application S2202.
We thank you, gentlemen, on the phone, and good luck with your project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our final one under new business tonight is actually application title S-74-13 revised. 1886 Linbury Woods Road. Applicant owner is 1886 Dover LLC. Attention, Justin Hadfield. 1886 Linbury Woods Road, Dover, Delaware, 19904. Engineer is Larson Engineering Group Incorporated. Attention, Doug J. Lieberman. 910 South Chapel Street, Suite 200, Newark, Delaware, 19713. Comprehensive plan map designation is industrial. Zoning district is IG, General Industrial District. Relation to growth zone is inside. Present use is industrial, which is a vinyl fence materials fabrication site. Proposed use is same. Buildings are listed as existing building A, 13,000 square feet. Existing building B, 148,652 square feet. Proposed building is 12,824 square feet for a total of 174,476 square feet. Number of parking spaces required is 175. Proposed is 188. Number of loading spaces required is 7. Proposed is 26. Water is Tidewater Utilities. Wastewater is Kent County Sewer District contract user. Levy Corps District is the third, Mr. Angel. School District is Capital. Fire District is Cheswold, Station 43. Area and location is 50.371 plus or minus acres at the intersection of Linbury Woods Road, County Road 152, and Moortown Road, County Road 92, on the northern boundary of the town of Cheswold. Is there someone here to represent this application? And as you're coming, we'd certainly like to thank you all for keeping that site going and making it very active, because it's a very great help to have all the employees we have in Kent County and to be able to keep these buildings occupied.
Kent County, and I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
You need to pull that up, and I understand that you're an attorney, so you won't have to be
I don't
sworn.
actually do anything, so.
You haven't been here lately, but we still know who you are.
I haven't been here for a while. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Connie Malmberg. I'm representing the applicant. My address is 30 The Green, Dover, Delaware. With me tonight is Justin Hadfield. He's a representative of the company. Also, Andrew Collins is here for Doug Lieberman, who is the engineer for the site. Mr. Hadfield's glad to answer any questions when I'm done with regard to the operations of the facility, and Mr. Collins with regard to any of the site plan issues. That said, I got a few background comments, and I'll take questions if there are any of me. By way of background, NVP Fence Company, which stands for National Vinyl Products, as mentioned by the chairman, is a fabricator of vinyl products, and they're operating at the old PPG site, which is nice, as mentioned, to reuse that facility. Property zone industrial. They began operations in September of 2020. In October of 2021, they were bought up actually by a larger company that does produces additional products. That said, NVP itself is the third largest vinyl fence manufacturer in the country. The plant currently, what they produce, to be more specific, is they produce vinyl fencing, like you would see around decorative fencing around a neighborhood or even a yard, as well as vinyl railing that you might see around a deck. Currently, the plant employs 100 people in Kent County and works in 2 shifts, 24/7. They sell their product up and down the East Coast from Maine to Florida. The plan is to construct an additional building. Thank you very much. There's no pointer here. There used to be a pointer, but I'll rely on you, Chris, I guess. That building right there is that 12,824 square foot building on the south side of the existing fabricating facility. The original build out of the PPG plant was about a $14 million investment in our county. That's build out. That's not the acquiring the facilities. That's the equipment and the various improvements necessary to make it an operating facility. The new building is about another $11 million investment. The current operation is the company ships in by truck basically vinyl powder and fabricates that into the products that I mentioned earlier. The purpose of the new building is to ship in the component parts so they can make the powder here. Those component parts will be shipped in by railroad siding, so it'll take the trucks off the road that have been bringing the product in the first place. It's safer, it's cheaper, it'll keep the company more competitive for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is they're at the whim of the various manufacturers of this vinyl powder that they use to fabricate the fencing. Currently, if they're able to bring in the products by rail where they're making their own vinyl powder, they have lots of sources to stay competitive in what is a very competitive market. And so they either need to grow and improve or die, like most businesses. A couple of site plan issues. The new building will be served by existing utilities on the site, which will be extended from the current building. There's a pump house still depicted on the plans, but it's existing, so I think it was marked as to be constructed. It's not significant, but it's a little square box, I think, between the buildings. Stormwater management has been approved already through KCD. It was sized originally to encompass this building when this first version came through for the outside storage area. There's a couple other points. Additional traffic's minimal. There's only about 5 additional employees that will be required for the additional facility. The site's going to comply with all APFO standards. As I mentioned, it'll actually result in a decrease in truck traffic, bringing materials to the plant. The applicant has worked diligently with the various state agencies, DelDOT always being one of the bigger ones, as well as the Economic Development Office. They're anxious to pull a permit. They've been working with Kent County on a footing permit to get started, hopefully by the end of this month, because it's rush right now. There is one request that I'm going to make that's beyond the site plan, and that is when this came through for the outside storage, which is why this is a revised application, there is a fence along Linbury Wood Road. And I don't know what the best sheet of it is to find it. It's on more of the, not along that part, but along the building. Right there? Oh, sorry. So it was requested that the fence be pulled back to the 75-foot beginning of the buffer. That's going to interfere with existing tree line. That also doesn't allow any buffer inside the fence because it's at the top of the swale. So even though it's reflected as requested last time, it's our request that when we submit when we go through the final site plan approval process, that we'd be able to move the fence more about 50 feet from the property line. And so it would have buffering behind it as well as buffering in front of it. It just isn't working right now. And the other little little point about that is, otherwise the fence has to go down into and up back the other side of the swale, which doesn't make any sense either. Remember, these folks make vinyl fencing. So this is the sort of fencing that you buy and put up in a neighborhood if you're a developer because it improves the look of it. So the vinyl fencing is actually more of an amenity than something that needs to be hidden behind a bunch of landscaping. Also, I'm going to use the wrong term of art, but the closer the fence is to the road, the angle of view actually blocks the plant better as the fence is closer to the cars as opposed to farther away. So with that minor tweak, I am ready for any questions you may have, or as I said, both the engineer and the applicant representation.
I think I picked up in your presentation, you say it's going to add approximately 5 employees?
Only 5 additional employees, but since they've been operating in the last 18 months or so, they've got 100 employees now.
And I wouldn't have trouble with the fence. I don't know if staff has a problem. I think does that need to be included in the motion, or how do we do this?
You could, when you make the motion, you could certainly reference a revision to the location of the fence as described.
It's about the fence as identified by their attorney. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Malberg. And I'll ask any of the commissioners have any questions for this gentleman? Seeing none, I once again thank you very much, and I thank the company for what they're doing for Kent County.
Nice to see you all. Thank you.
And now I'll open it up to commissioners. Anybody like to make a motion?
Motion.
Glenn, go ahead and make the motion, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Regional Planning Commission grant approval of the revision to S74-13, 1886 Linbury Woods, modifying the plan recorded July 9th, 2002. This is based on the memorandum from the staff dating March 10th, 2022, and the finding of the fact that A, the subject site is zoned general industrial, and the warehouse fulfillment of the FDA materials, miscellaneous plastic products, extension of vinyl fence materials, and miscellaneous plastic products, vinyl fence and railing fabrication are permitted by right. B, the location is appropriate and not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. C, the public health, safety, and general welfare will not be adversely affected. D, the application is compliant with the adequate public facilities ordinance. Pursuant to Chapters 187 and 205 of the Kent County Code and pursuant to 4082 and 4811, the Commission has reviewed the application, and as part of this approval, the applicant shall comply with all staff and agency requirements as described in the September 10th, 2020 memorandum from the staff. February 13th, 2020 staff recommendations report and shall comply with the following conditions. A, the record plan must be revised to include all requirements and recommendations of the Regional Planning Commission, items contained in this memo and final plan checklist. B, the final plan must be approved within 24 months of the preliminary plan approval, and construction must commence within 18 months of the final plan approval. And the revision indicated tonight to the fence, as indicated by the applicant's attorney will be approved.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Sarah, please call the commission.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Galvary?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Mills?
Yes to approve.
Mr. Davis?
Yes to approve. I want to welcome you to Kent County. It's always nice to hear jobs coming to our state, and you're doing a great job, and thank you very much.
Mr. Jester?
Yes, for all reasons, including the reason about the fencing.
So you have 7 ayes in favor of granting approval of the revision to application S7413.
Thank you, and good luck with your project. We're now down to public comment. Public comment. I see we have a Mrs. Public 2 in the audience now, where we used to have a Mrs. Public 1, so we welcome her tonight also. Going down to commission comments. Any commissioners have anything to say? I'll let Denise go first.
I just wanted to say that our vote of 7 for this nicely compromised ordinance has kind of made my night. Yeah. I'm sure that there are a few people over to my left that are really, really happy. I hesitate to tell you to get up and do a happy dance, though.
Mr. Davis.
Well, I just want to thank and congratulate Sarah, her staff, the county attorney. As we know, this was a pretty contentious issue within the county, and like I said earlier, it's a beginning, but I also know that there was a lot of debate, a lot of difference of opinions, but I guess everyone has came together and they worked together, so the staff and the county attorney, Mr. Eliason, has put something together that is very workable at this point in time. Perhaps there'll be some other issues going on later on that can be worked out, but I think you all did a tremendous job. I mean, this is probably the most contentious thing I've ever seen before this planning commission. A lot of emotions, and you did a great job. I just want to thank you for that.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. Sarah, call the commission.
Mr. Peterman? Mr. Peterman?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Servon?
Yes to adjourn.
Mrs. Karcher?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Galvary?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes to adjourn.
Mr. Jester?
Yes to adjourn, and thank you all for all that you've done tonight.